Good morning, folks. Mike Barron here. This is Mac. She's my assistant. We call her Ninja Dog because she's so ferocious. But this is about martial arts and comics. Ever since I started collecting comics, I was fascinated by the depictions of various martial arts, especially in Master of Kung Fu. I had not yet started training when I picked up my first issues of Master of Kung Fu, but I was entranced by the art, especially the work of Paul Gulacy. But even I, a novice, could tell that the martial arts drawn on the page weren't really martial arts, they were just poses designed to look good. And that's fine because comics are a visual medium. But you can do anything in comics that you can do in other mediums with varying degrees of success, and that includes martial arts. So I vowed that if I ever got the opportunity to write comics, I would try to make the martial arts as accurate as possible. Eventually, I did get that opportunity when I wrote Punisher and when I created my own character, Badger. Badger's a multiple personality, only one of whom is a costume crime fighter. He was inspired by a book called The Minds of Billy Milligan, which was a chronicle of a real life multiple personality, Billy Milligan. And at one point, Billy Milligan imagined himself to be an enforcer for the Russian mafia and described an incident where he took down two or three larger people without ever having trained in his life, but in his mind, he was totally committed to this persona and he was channeling moves he may have seen in other films or something. So that hit me. This guy could imagine this and then carry it out. It's not that way in real life. You must train for many years to be able to do it effectively. There are no shortcuts in martial arts, there are no tricks. They show you a million techniques, but they only work if you're good at them. But let's get back to comics and fight scenes in comics. Fight scenes have been a staple of comics since time immemorial. Here are my other helpers. Um, from the, we all have seen that famous panels by Jack Kirby, which show the Hulk swinging a house-sized fist and four sets of feet flying off the panel in four different directions. Well, that's not really showing how a technique evolves or unfolds. The trick to showing effective martial arts in comics is, first of all, to understand the techniques and show them accurately. And secondly, and this is very important, hold your camera steady at a medium level and let the characters go through the motions. You want to show the martial arts unfold in a realistic and dynamic manner. Now, I've had the honor of working with a number of very skilled martial artists who are also comic book artists, including Dennis Cowan, Vail Myerick, and Jeff Johnson. In fact, Jeff wrote a book about it. It's a really good book, and Jeff would know. And you could see his work in The Way of the Rat, which is a book he did with Chuck Dixon for CrossGen. When I started doing martial arts and Badger comics, I would often go to magazines like Black Belt and Kung Fu Illustrated because they would have tutorials which were broken up into a number of photos. And the photo would take you step by step through the technique. Now, if you have a copy of Badger number 9, I don't think I've ever done it better than in that comic. Bill Reinhold, there's a 3-page fight scene toward the end. And if you look at it, you'll see those techniques unfolding in real time. They're exciting, they're realistic, they would work on the street if you know what you're doing. Uh, I used to write comics by drawing each page out hand by hand with my very crude art, but it's good enough so that the artist and the editor can see what I intended. And that's how I would uh, choreograph these fight scenes. And when I need to do it these days, I still do that. I will draw it out page by page and show the technique as it unfolds as realistically as possible. And when I say techniques, I don't mean the house size fist. I mean things like joint locks, trips, takedowns, and chokes. You can't just have a single panel that shows it. You have to show the build up to the technique, the wind up, and then the swing, so to speak. That doesn't mean you have to devote a million panels to this sort of thing. It's just that I, as a reader, I want to see that technique unfold. Maybe two, three panels, four panels. That's all it takes to show the technique unfold realistically. But that's what I want to see. Uh, if you want to see martial arts done realistically in another visual medium, there are a million kung fu movies, but to my mind, the Ip Man movies, there are four of them starring Donnie Yen, those are the finest martial arts movies I've ever seen, uh, because you can see the techniques unfolding. You can see Donnie Yen's mastery. You can see the mastery of all involved. Now, that doesn't mean they say, okay, guys, this is what we're going to do. Get up there and hit it. No. Uh, it often takes uh, take after take after take to make it look good on cinema. And of course, these fights look good in cinema. But when you see a fight in real life, it often doesn't look good. I mean, if you can watch the UFC, and you'll see guys get in a tussle and they'll go to the ground, and one guy will be on top and the guy on the bottom will be grabbing his head, and that'll go on for 5 minutes, and it's enough to put you to sleep unless they break into a good scramble. That's not what people want to see in comics. And while there are many exciting jujitsu techniques that lend themselves to comics, there are others that are kind of not as exciting. So the point in a martial arts, in a fight scene in a comic, is to hold the reader's interest by showing him something he hasn't seen before. Well, you can say, well, all the techniques have been taken. Well, not really. I mean, there are a million techniques in martial arts for just about everything. So if you're planning a martial arts sequence in your comic, uh, you could do worse than collecting old issues of Black Belt Illustrated and Kung Fu Illustrated and looking for those tutorials that go photo by photo, and they'll often have 6 or 8 photos per page showing the technique evolve from step by step. All you have to do is transpose those drawings, those photos into your drawing, and you'll have an exciting and effective technique. The fight shouldn't go on forever, but people do like fights. And if you're going to put a fight in your comic, make the fight itself exciting. Don't do what Stan Lee did. He'd say, Jack, I need 4 pages of these guys fighting. And then Jack would do his thing. And although the art was very exciting and dynamic, the martial arts were not very convincing. That's all I have to say about that at this time. Thank you.